Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Cryptids and Monsters Encounters video. Once again, I'm doing another one of these in here from one of my favorite subreddits. This one from the reddit.com website. They're from the subreddit called Humanoid Encounters. The reason I wanted to share this one here is because it has to do with one of the most unique set of encounters yet. They may be cryptids, they may be something else. I don't know. I'm going to go ahead. I'll give this information here. Let me know what you guys and gals think. But it definitely stood out when it came to reading this information. But it comes from a user by the name of Tinfoil Tales. And they titled theirs as Weird Creatures in the Road. So let's go ahead and let's share this entry. Let me know what you guys and gals think as well. This is what they state. I have started sharing my encounter in Indiana back in 2007 around recently and a couple other subs, but this one also seems like a good place. I'll TLDR at the end for those who hate reading. So I work night shift and a coworker and I were both driving home a country road after work, probably around 4:45 a.m., still dark outside. I saw his taillights get brighter like he was hitting his brakes. Then he swerves down into the ditch line and comes back out on the road and keeps going. As I approach that same area, I see this really tall black figure walking in the road. It's moving in a very weird, unnatural gait, like it was kind of blowing in the wind, but it clearly wasn't. I first thought it was a really tall person wrapped up in a big black blanket because I didn't see any arms or head, just two big legs and a torso. I had to swerve over to avoid it, but I basically came to a full stop and the thing walks past my driver's window. It had to be around 7 foot tall as it was leaning forward and was at least a foot or so taller than the top of my vehicle. As it got behind my vehicle, I could see the taillights illuminating its legs, but couldn't make out any details like hair or anything like clothing, just large, thick black legs. So I took off down the road once it was behind me and saw that my coworker had pulled into a gravel parking lot, so I pulled up beside him. He's freaking out, asking if I saw it, how it didn't have a head, and other ramblings. I said we should go back and try to see what the hell this thing is because it seemed oblivious to us driving right at night. He didn't want to, but he ended up following behind me. We drove back the way we came, and in around the same area, there was now a large black dog laying across the road. This was not your normal sized canine. It was much larger than any normal dog, but it looked dead. It wasn't there when we just drove through there less than 3 minutes or so beforehand. Anyways, I decided I was going to go out and see if it's still alive or not and move it off to the side of the road because you can't really drive around it without going off the edge of the road on either side because of the way it was laying across the road. And so I get about 15 feet away. It raises its head up and looks back at me. Its eyes are glowing yellow, but I still say that this was due to the vehicle lights causing eye shine. It lets out a low, deep, rumbling, guttural growl, and I stop instantly. It attempts to stand up. Seems like it has some sort of issues with its front legs, but it stands up and continues to stand up on two legs like a person would. It only stood on its back legs for a second or two, enough time for it to look at me, but then it hunkers back down to what looks like on all fours and then runs off to the wooded area. But there's a pretty tall fence there, so I don't really know how it managed to disappear because it would have had to have gone over, under, or through the fence, or it just vanished. I also don't think it was using its front legs when it ran off because I never saw them really moving. Now, after all this, there was one last strange happening. My coworker gets out of his car after the dog thing ran off, and he comes up to me to basically say, "What the F was that?" And as we are talking, I noticed a mouse standing between us. It was also on its hind legs, kind of sitting as it was washing its face. I nudged it with my shoe, and it doesn't even seem to care. Kind of like the first thing that was walking, it was completely oblivious to our presence. It just kept on cleaning itself. And so we left and went our separate ways. I woke up later that day and started looking into werewolves and came across dogman stories. The only thing I will say about all of this is this doesn't have the hands and feet like it is often claimed by witnesses. It had normal dog paws. It just had a large black wolf style look about itself, but its fur was really fluffy, which didn't really seem to match with the normal wolf type fur. It wasn't a bear, it didn't have any mange, and I know the difference between a bear or something like that. It just looked like a very large black dog. The first time we saw, some people said sounds like a Fresno nightcrawler, but those have been white in appearance and not nearly as thick and tall. Someone recently asked if maybe it had wings, and that's what it was concealing under its arms and head, as if they were draped around the front of it. Never thought about that before and can't say one way or another because I don't see any sort of details on its body, just blackness. The way it moved just seemed very odd, otherworldly. I always think of those inflatable tube mans that flap around in the wind at car dealers or some sort of events when I try to describe its movements. Just really weird. The mouse, that might be the oddest thing to me because I physically touched it, so I know it was real, but it just didn't seem to care. It wasn't until recently I made the connection that all three of these creatures were on two legs at one point, and are they all connected? Who knows? I never saw anything like that ever again, and I only live about 4 miles from where it happened, and I drive through that area often. I wish I had more answers, but all I get is more questions. As someone who's been pretty skeptical most of my life, I've tried to explain it away in some logical manner, but I can't. I have said that the dog was playing with the mouse, must have got hit, and its front legs were hurt. That would explain why it was walking on its back legs and why the movement seemed unnatural. The mouse was probably traumatized from the dog messing with it. That explains why it looked all wet and why it was still cleaning itself. That's the version that I've accepted for many years. The only problem with that is whatever was originally walking down the road was much larger than the dog. When the dog stood up, it was maybe 6 feet tall, but whatever walked by my window was at least 7 foot tall, leaning forward. The walking torso was also a lot thicker than the dog, as the legs were very thick. The dogs were normal dog legs. TLDR version, a coworker and I encountered a large black headless, armless walking torso. We turned around and went back to see what it was and found a large black dog that stood up on 2 legs and then ran off. While standing in the road talking about what happened, we noticed a mouse standing upright, cleaning itself next to us. Nudged it with my foot and it wasn't afraid, never ran off. Then that's it. That's everything associated with this encounter or set of encounters. So let's talk about that here. Very fascinating, right? Have you ever heard of anything like that before? I haven't. This thing, whatever it was basically a walking torso, a tall one, 7 foot tall, in other words. But there were no arms, no head, just 2 legs and that torso. Now, he did mention the Nightcrawler, which was one of my earliest videos. Like, I did this a long time back. And yes, like, those are also basically walking torsos, but he's right. It's white. Those Nightcrawlers are infamous for having that white colorish to it that just completely engulfs the entire body. It's like immaculate. Here, though, this is a black figure, a very tall one, and this is obviously in Indiana. The one involving the Nightcrawlers are in Fresno. So unless some of them moved over all the way to Indiana, who knows? But this completely baffles me. I have no idea what this could be. I have never really talked about something else that is involving just a walking torso with legs. So if anyone has any clue as to what this tall creature could be, let me know. And then the encounter with the dog was also pretty bizarre. Obviously, it was unnatural of how big it was, and then it started to rise up on its legs, almost as if it was a person. Now, it did not move like when it started running like a person would on 2 legs. Instead, it reverted back to 4 legs, although the user did mention that they couldn't really see the front 2 legs working. Maybe it was just running too fast. And then it just seemed to outright disappear when it came across a fence. The mouse thing is okay. I didn't really think too much of it. It stood out definitely for the user, but the reason I mention that is because I've come across animals, especially in Washington, D.C., both birds and squirrels. They don't care who they're next to. Like, they're so used to people, they actually come up right to you and they'll stand right next to you and they'll even nudge you and so on. Like, they want food. And so they don't care how close they are to people. So that's the impression that I got. But let me know what you guys and gals think. Quite a strange set of encounters. I Well, this is one of the few that I'm baffled on, that I don't have really much answers on, but let me know what you guys and gals think. All right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care. Bye.